Hi, I'm 2021 Why Not Cam Awards winner Chelsea Poe. I'm here to tell you about my cam studio, Treasure Cams. Treasure Cams is a performer-led webcam studio owned by queer porn star Bella Vendetta. We welcome all 21 plus models who want to earn a paycheck from home as cam performers. We're open to all body types, genders, persuasions, and presentations. You get access to our performer-only forums, monthly team meetings, as well as help with promotion and marketing. For customers, check out treasurecams.com to see all of our models, schedules, and photos. treasurecams.com. Have you ever been looking for an amazing queer cam performer? Well, I got you covered. You should check out TS Cami. Her super hot content is on Chatterbait, Twitter, Xhamster, and Reddit. Support this rad trans femme babe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Performers Pod. I'm Chelsea Poe. Today I'm here with Electra Rayne of Queer Crush. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I had such a great time on your set. Was that like 3 weeks ago or a month ago?
I think it was more like 6 weeks ago.
Oh my God. I
Because it
feel
was
like
during AVN, right? Well, no, maybe it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago. But that's how time is. Who knows?
for real, it's such a blur. Yeah, I really love what you're doing. That I came onto set, I didn't really know what to expect, and then I was like, oh, this is a queer porn shoot in Vegas.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, it is.
It was super cool. So yeah, how long have you been doing Queer Crush now?
About just shy of 18 months.
Oh
So
my God.
last June of 22 was when I like really finalized the concept and said to Dahlia, like, hey, can I take you to a business lunch? Like, I have this idea. Let's get the gears in motion. We started shooting in July of 22 and we launched in September of 22.
That's so amazing. I can't wait to hear more. But so we're both from the Midwest originally. Are you from like the city of Chicago? Or are you from like the suburbs? Because
So I grew up in the suburbs. I actually grew up in the area that Mean Girls is based on. Mean
oh
Girls is
my
based
God.
on, yeah, Mean Girls is based on the high
Yeah.
school that my parents went to, which is like not terribly far from the high school I went to. That's also where all the John Hughes movies were filmed. So
Yeah.
like that area. And then I went to college actually in Evanston, which again, like if you know Mean
Oh,
Girls,
okay.
that should mean something.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then from college, I moved to the city and I lived there for a good few years before I moved to Vegas. So I'm from the suburbs, but I did actually live in Chicago for years. It is not, I have the Chicago flag tattooed on my arm and it's not a lie, I promise.
I feel like, yeah, it's not. See, when I'm overseas, I'm from 2 hours north of Chicago, which is in Michigan. So when I'm overseas, when I describe to people, if I say I'm from Michigan, they're like, Detroit, right? I'm like, no. So my partner gives me shit whenever I'm like, yeah, I'm from Chicago. Because then when we're in the States, anyone who's from Chicago, they're like, oh, yeah, you're from Chicago too, right?
Right. I mean,
No.
I think it's one of those things people, there's so many jokes about like Chicago and the suburbs or whatever. Like even BoJack Horseman has a joke about like what's
Mhm.
next? Evanston, Chicago, Schaumburg, Chicago. But I think really it's contextually dependent, right? Like if I'm out here in Vegas, I'm just going to say I'm from Chicago. I grew up 30 minutes away and then I lived in the city. If I'm in Illinois, anywhere, I'm going to be a lot more specific, or even
Yeah.
Wisconsin, I'm going to be a lot more specific about where I'm from. And like, I think that's valid. Like, even if somebody is from Schaumburg, if they're talking to me, I'm a little like, I know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
if I just meet somebody in Oregon or something and you're from Schaumburg, but you say you're from Chicago, like, I don't know. I think that actually makes sense. I think that's just being clear.
I feel like you have a very like traditional like North Side Chicago story. Like
Yeah.
your whole like it definitely
Yeah.
fits into that. I'm like as
Yes.
long as you're in Illinois, I think it's okay to say nationally. Like as long as like in northern Illinois. But I feel
Yeah.
like once you're like getting into like Gary, Indiana or like Michigan City, you're
Right.
like, that's
Right.
not Chicago.
No, that's not Chicago. If you're from like, I feel like it's like Rockford. Rockford starts to be the edge too, where it's like, okay, that is its own city. That is
Yeah,
not
for sure.
not Chicagoland anymore.
Yeah, so how did you kind of get into sex work? I feel like there's almost like this burgeoning porn thing that's happening in Chicago now. Every time I've had a screening there, it's been really fun. Chicago's always been the big city to me growing up. So
Yeah.
I still have really positive feelings about it. Like I'll talk to my partner and I'm like, "Oh yeah, Chicago, it's a world-class city like New York or LA or like
Oh, it's
London."
better
And
than New
they're
York or
like,
LA.
that's one of my feelings. And my partner's like, "No, it's like a Boston or like a Minneapolis." I'm like,
I mean, I love Minneapolis and I've never been to Boston, but my partner really likes Boston. But like I no, I don't know. Chicago's the best. I miss it terribly. How I got into sex work, I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible.
you
We'll
can keep it
see.
long, you can do
Okay.
whatever. We
All
have a
right.
time here, honestly.
Okay, great. So, I knew that I had, well, I'll give you the whole story then actually.
Okay,
When
yeah, I'm
I
ready for it.
was 11, a friend and I thought it would be really, really funny if we went to boobs.com. We had no idea, like, didn't know about porn, only like knew a little bit about sex, but we were just like, wouldn't that be so silly? And I'm sure, we probably also went to like fuck.com and shit.com. Like, what if we just like went to swear words, like things you're not supposed to
Yeah.
say.com? So we went to boobs.com. And it used to be, it isn't anymore, but it used to be like an affiliate directory of porn sites, and they would
Hmm.
feature different things on the homepage every day. And what happened to be featured at that time was kink.com's site, Hogtied, their rope bondage site.
Oh yeah.
And so my friend was like, ew, gross. And I was like, uh-huh, ew, gross, what? So then like privately, I went back to it later and I was like, what is this? And it changed my life. And I was like, I don't fully understand, but like the things I'm seeing look a lot like what goes on in my head when I do that weird wiggling thing that I'm only like just starting to piece together might be masturbation, but like I'm 11,
Mm.
so I don't really get it. And I want to make it really clear too, like I was inadvertently exposed to bondage porn at a really young age, but that's not where those fantasies and ideas came from. Like I already had all of those types of things
Oh
in my
my
brain
God.
all by myself. And so then when I saw the website, I was like, oh my God.
I
Um,
feel that. I
yeah,
totally had like all these fantasies about being tied up and shit.
yes.
And it wasn't until like maybe like high school where like I was on MySpace and I saw a girl in a cage and I was like, what? What is this?
Right, somebody else. Yeah. So at first, like I kept going back to the site and I kept watching like the kink.com trailers. This was
Hmm.
before they had a 5 trailer limit, which was very smart of them to implement. And I just like at first I thought there was something horribly wrong with me because number one, I
Mm.
was like, do I have a porn addiction? Like the fact that I want to keep watching these things. And number two, like I must be some sort of horrible misogynist monster because like I like seeing these women who are tied up and suffering. And I didn't like totally get it. I didn't get that like porn was a career that you could do
Mm.
until I finally saw like a full exit interview from one of the scenes and the 2257 compliance statement about like all models being over the age of 18 and all this and like compensation and what did you like and what didn't you like. And I was like, what? Like, these are just models that are like getting paid to do this. Who would want to do a thing like that? Wait, I am someone who would want to do a thing like that. And I remember this moment really clearly. I was probably about 12 years old.
Yeah.
Um, and that moment was huge for me in like accepting myself sexually, like just sort of like accepting who I am, and by extension, accepting all of myself. And so I've always been like, you can ask anybody, my partner, my earliest ex-boyfriend, who's still a good friend of mine, my parents, like I have always been fiercely independent and fiercely true to who I am as a person. And like nobody and nothing is going to get in the way of that. And actually, like a big part of that is when I was so young, I realized like I'm not alone. And so I knew I really wanted to like give back and like be a part of that. Also, realistically, like BDSM can be very complicated and
For
expensive.
sure.
I'm specifically into like gear and machinery and toys and all of these
Hmm.
things that cost money. And like you need to know like really what you're doing to be able to use them safely. So it kind of felt like a way to get paid to have all my dreams come true. Not really how it actually works, but in my head, I was
Yeah.
like, yeah. So I applied to kink.com on my 18th birthday.
Oh my
I,
God. You were
yeah,
one of those.
yeah,
Yeah,
literally on my 18th birthday.
I've had a few people who are like 18th birthday. I went to shoot a porn scene or I applied on 18th birthday. So
Yeah.
what year was this?
That would have been 2014. I
Oh,
think
okay.
2014 when I applied. I kink.com never called me. I applied every 6 months until they finally shot me like a year and a half ago or something. Now I've done a bunch of scenes for them. But I did get called by Intersec or Insex.
Yeah.
And I shot a few scenes for them in 2015 and 2016. But
Hmm.
then So like, okay, I knew I wanted to do porn for a really long time, but I never in a million years thought that I would be a porn star. It was a lot more just like a
Yeah.
bucket. Like it wasn't like I'm gonna do porn as my career. It was just like I'm gonna do porn. So I did a handful of scenes in 2015, 2016, and then I wasn't getting more work, and no agent wanted to sign a size 8 from Chicago who already had tattoos. So I was just kind of like, okay, great. Like I did it. I did porn.
For real.
I was in college to be a forensic scientist. And actually, because of porn, there's a woman named Puran Mehraban. She used to go by Trixie. She doesn't anymore, but she wrote for the Daily Cal, UC Berkeley's
Hmm.
student newspaper, which is where my then boyfriend went to school, about the column called Sex on Tuesday. And she wrote about being a stripper and also a student. And a lot of what she wrote really resonated with me as someone who was doing porn and also a student. So I had reached out to her on one of my porn trips. And I was just like, here's who I am. What you said really spoke with me. I'd love to buy you a coffee. And she's like, sure. Also, if you need a place to stay while you're in town, my roommates and I have an extra bedroom. So I stayed with her for 2 weeks. It like radically changed my life. I learned so much from her.
The Bay will do
And then
that.
yeah, and she like did my makeup to go audition at her strip club. I had never worn fake lashes before. I had never worn top eyeliner before. I
Oh,
probably
wow.
hadn't even ever, and I had only worn foundation in the context of like doing a play where they put stage makeup on you.
Very
I only
Midwestern
ever,
overall.
yeah, yes, exactly. So she did my makeup. I literally didn't even recognize myself. I took the train, like I took the BART into San Francisco. I auditioned at Gold Club. I did not get
Oh,
hired, but
okay.
I got a $10 tip on the side stage during my audition. And I was like, this is amazing. I need to go do this. So I wasn't getting booked for more porn, but I started dancing and I absolutely fell in love with dancing. I stripped through college and I thought like that I was done with porn. I finished college. I had like a couple different normal people jobs. I was still dancing because I loved it so much. And then in 2019, I had 3 surgeries and was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is
Oh,
a
yeah.
connective tissue disorder. So I couldn't dance all year, and I accumulated $10,000 of medical debt. And then I was back in the strip club for 1 week, and then the pandemic happened. So thankfully, I had my day job was enough money to live off of, but it wasn't enough money to pay off the medical debt. So, like everybody else, I hopped on the OnlyFans train and it went really well. And I met Jordan, Jordan Max,
Dora Max
who,
also has been
yes,
on the pod.
yes, and was Chelsea's partner for Queer Crush.
Yep.
And then Jordan got me connected with her agent, and I kind of bounced around between agents until I settled on one I really liked. So I got back to performing in 2020. And then in March of 21, I quit my day job to go full time as a performer. In October of 21, I moved to Vegas for my work as a performer. And then, like I said, in mid 2022 is when I started directing and started conceptualizing the site. So
Wow.
that's the long
That's
version.
so badass though. Like I just love hearing like everyone's journey into porn because there's no one journey. I feel like so many people just assume you go out to shoot porn once, it either becomes your career or you go
Right.
home. But like I
Yeah.
think I also had that same Midwestern mindset going into porn where I'm like, oh, I can say it's something I've done. You
Yeah,
know what I
exactly.
mean? Because I think it's also like that you get on a plane, you go somewhere, and then you come back. It feels like it's like more of an adventure than
Yeah, it's
a
very
career thing.
separate from your regular life. And like I remember packing in my dorm room in college and my friends like helping me decide on which outfits to bring.
For
And then
sure.
exactly, I left and I came back. In fact, I remember like when I was still living in Chicago, but I was full time in, 2020,
Hmm.
2021. I'd go on these trips where I'd be gone for like 2 to 3 weeks and I'd like hit Florida and then over to LA and Vegas. And I'd be gone from my now wife for a really long time. And it just felt really separate. There was like my at home life, and then there was my traveling porn life. So, right after we moved, I was shooting for Mike Adriano on Thanksgiving, which is really funny because it means I was fasting like on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to stay the night and then shoot another scene the next day. And the other performer for the scene the next day canceled. So the next day scene fell apart. And I ended up coming home like around dinner time, and my wife picked me up at the airport. And I remember getting in the car with her, and it was just this like such a surreal experience because this was already like my fifth or sixth scene for Mike Adriano. I love shooting with him. I've shot with
Hmm.
him a bunch of times, but it was just so bizarre to like do that, like be on his set and then see my wife in the
For sure.
same day. It was this like worlds collide synthesis that I had not really thought about or expected.
Yeah, I had one of those experiences. I had this really awful experience shooting. Oh, I actually didn't get to tell you. So I did all this New England porn. We were vaguely talking about this before my Uber showed up. So it was a logistical nightmare. So like people were flying cross country and flights would get delayed. So it'd be like, oh, you have to shoot at 4 a.m. or something.
Oh,
So I had that. So I shot a porn scene, finished it by like 6 a.m. My flight was at 8 in the morning and I was going back home to visit my family. So like my mom and stepdad picked me up from the airport. I still had cum in my hair from that. And I'm just like, I just need to sleep. And I just remember sleeping like 7 hours, then waking up. I'm like, I'm in my childhood basement right now. And I just shot a porn scene like 12 hours ago. It was the most bizarre thing.
yeah, that is definitely wild. Oh my goodness. Did your parents at least know that you were coming from a porn trip?
One of them did. One of them
Ah,
did.
oh
So that
God.
was, yeah, not the best. But also it's just like weird when you're doing shit on like holidays and stuff. Like my first Christmas in the Bay. I just moved here, so I like was like, okay, I'll work. So I spent it at the Kink Armory camming all day. And it was like, huh, this is different, but
Yeah, definitely. Definitely different.
so were your like main goals early in your career really to shoot BDSM porn?
Like,
And then it became more about trans representation. I mean, queer representation as a whole.
yeah, so like really, really early, like before I thought of it as a career, it was just
Hmm.
like do porn and try to see if I can have my kinky dreams come true. And then coming back to it in 2020, it really was just make money. As time's gone on, really like my long-term career goal is to just grow Queer Crush to where like I don't need to be performing. I really
Hmm.
I've discovered number one that I just truly do love directing. I because I also direct for another company and then like am a director for hire. So and sometimes it
Hmm.
really is directing. Like for Queer Crush, it's a little silly to call myself the director
Yeah.
because there isn't. I am the PA. I make the business decisions. I do the scheduling. But like I'm not. There is no directing for Queer Crush.
Hmm.
For my other site, it's totally the opposite. There's like 20-page scripts that you need to get
Oh my
exactly right.
goodness.
And I love directing. Even more importantly, yeah, the queer representation and just creating like, sex that looks like the sex I have in my personal life is a really big deal. As a performer, what I'd really like to be doing these days is a lot more with scripts. I love acting. I grew up doing theater, and part of why I like porn is getting to act. Also, like, I can do subtle and realistic and convincing and serious, but it is so much more fun to be 20% extra ridiculous and campy on
A
top
million
of it.
percent.
Yeah, so porn acting is really, really fun. And I just like I don't get booked very much, and I don't really know what that is. Even my
I
agent is like, I
mean,
don't understand. The feedback is like always positive, but I whatever. I'm over being upset about it. I'd love to be doing more scripts, but really, my Queer Crush is like Queer Crush is my life's work. Queer Crush is my
yeah.
baby.
Yeah. I have like such a weird relationship. Like I'll read for like mainstream film parts, no problem. But in porn, I'm like, we're here to do intense things. I'm like, that's why I
Right.
got into porn. Who are like some performers that really like inspired you in this industry, like that you like looked up
Stoya
to? Hell
is my
yeah.
hero, number one hero.
Also been on the
Every
pod.
Really? Oh, that's so cool.
My honestly, it felt like I just got to like talk to my hero for like an hour and a half and just
Right.
be like, yeah, you're the best.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would feel too. Yeah,
Yeah,
Stoya is my hero. Pretty much everything she's ever done in her career or life in general is just so inspiring to me.
it's
And
so
even
cool.
like, yeah, even like just like sitting on the APAC board is amazing because I'm following in her footsteps and all of
Hmm.
these things. I've like subscribed to her OnlyFans and tipped her just so I can be like, I just read your book and I love you. Goodbye. Like that's how much I love her. Um, and I don't know, I'm trying to think if there's somebody active too who's like a really big, I guess really just like everything that Jizzly is another really big inspiration.
Yeah,
That one feels weird to say though because we are friends now. So like not
yeah.
like we talk every day, but like we know each other very well. But I think I read Coming Out Like a Porn Star right when I started in
Oh, really?
2015. Yeah. And so then like last year getting to actually like meet Jizzly and work with
Oh,
Jizz on some of the Queer Crush things has been really, really cool too.
yeah. Jizz was my like way into porn. I met them at the college I was living at, and then I got cast on Crash Pad like the next day.
That's
It was just like,
awesome.
what the fuck?
That's
Because
amazing.
I definitely viewed them in that same light where I'm like, oh my God, you are like the non-binary porn star.
Yeah, even like my business partner, Dahlia Von Knight, when we got so Pink and White licenses some of the Queer
Hmm.
Crush scenes to stream on their site. And when I had applied and then Jizz reached out to us and was like, yes, here are the scenes that we want. And when I told my business partner and producer Dahlia, I was like, yeah, like Pink and White is wants all these, and I'm talking to Jizz Lee and blah blah blah. Dahlia, like it was basically like, who cares that they're licensing our scenes? You're talking to Jizz Lee.
I feel like you get that shit in this industry because like I feel like the porn generations are so small that you end up working with people you really look up to.
Yeah.
Like I licensed some of my films through Trenchcoat, and I was getting checks and it was signed by Caden Cross, and I'm like, fuck, she knows my address.
That's so funny. I don't know what trench coat is. I'm writing that down to
Oh,
look
so
that
it
up.
was so Stoya and Caden Cross had this site that they ran, and it was all like curated porn by them.
Hmm.
So there was like I had a Femme for Femme movie on there. They had, do you know the site Mormon Girls?
No.
Oh my God, you're gonna have your mind blown. It's
Okay.
Mormon Girls with a Z, and they do like it's an actual Mormon girl who runs it, who's from Salt Lake City, and they get like all the traditional like undergarments from the Mormon
Yeah.
church, and they do all the ceremonies and stuff.
That's so funny. One of my best industry friends is former, she and her partner are former Mormon. So I will have to tell her about this.
It's also super super hot. Some of my friends are like, you need to do that. I'm like, I'm all about being trans representation, but I don't know if I need to be the first trans Mormon girl. I'm like, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's my calling, but
Right.
that's the only thing that's ever made me regret getting tattoos. I'm like, I could have done that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I guess Allison Ray's on here. I know Allison. That's so funny.
Yeah, I think Maxine Holloway did some too, if you know
Cool.
Maxine. Yeah, it was a really cool site. I think it eventually became deeper and then got bought out by oh
Gotcha. Vixen.
yeah, Vixen. I was gonna say Wicked, but I'm
Gotcha.
like, that's not it.
No, it's
Um,
Vixen. That makes
I
a lot of sense though, because Deeper is like one of the top sites I'd like to shoot for, but haven't yet.
yeah, I think it's just like, how do you feel about like mainstream porn right now? I think it's in a pretty decent place.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's split, right? Like, I feel like you can't kind of say one thing about it. There's a lot of things that I think are problematic. There's a lot of things that I think are going well. I also, right, like have this bias of like I work so hard and I'd like to get booked and it doesn't happen.
For
So
real.
like it's kind of hard to make one statement on it.
Yeah, I just feel like artistically, like when I got into porn, was like really in it. I've been fully immersed in it since like 2013.
Mhm.
And it used to be so fucking bad. Like all the award shows I would go to like had slurs everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I do feel like there's been some pretty good progress there for sure.
That's what makes me feel so fucking old now in this industry because I'm like, I'm only 32. Overall, that's not old in the scheme of things, but in porn age, I'm just like, it used to be so overtly transphobic and so mean.
It did. It did. Honestly, probably the biggest change that I've specifically noticed over my, like, if we include the entire, oh my God, 9 years. Oh my God, 9 years. Whoa.
You
That
have to
was,
come up with a 10-year celebration now.
yeah, I guess so. And not this coming December, but the next December, I'm gonna have to do something crazy. Um, Wow. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the biggest change that I've seen definitely has been the rise and like acceptability of the crossover star and like
Hmm.
bi porn, and also the fact that like you do have many more studios seeing trans women as women, and
Yeah.
therefore not just like because you know it used to be like if you were a guy and you did one gay porn scene, that's it. You're a gay
Yeah,
performer now.
you're
You're not allowed in
gay.
straight porn, and then with that typically the trans girls were considered part of the gay porn scene
Hmm.
even though they're girls. So that change has been really really cool to see, and it you know it's not done right. Like there's still kind of only space for bisexual men in as much as like bi porn is a fetish, but there's at least been like huge progress there that's really cool to see. That said, I would love to see like more space for trans men,
For real.
more space for bisexual men to exist without it directly being a fetish, and more space for, and like I guess I'm biased here, but like more space for genuine and authentic lesbian porn, especially in as much as it's categorized. Because like right now, there's a lot of sites where it's very hard for us to, as for Queer Crush, to post or share our content because we have to either designate it as gay, which on the site means dudes,
Yeah.
or straight. And it's not either of those things.
It's so crazy. Like this comes up on this podcast a lot that our all of our porn, both of us, is considered straight porn,
I know.
which is so weird. Like,
Yes. Right. Like literally my job, like I say this all the time, especially like when performers are like, oh, so like we were thinking maybe like for a scenario we could do, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Queer Crush doesn't do scenarios. The scenario for Queer Crush is you two, or sometimes three, are gay and into each other. And so you came to our studio to do something about that. Like that's all that the
I love
setup is.
that.
And thank you. And yeah, like literally, like I have the coolest job. It's just inviting pretty dykes over to my house to have sex with each other and capturing it on camera. It's so nice. And yet the fact that that's considered like straight content is so
It's
weird.
so weird. I love
Yeah.
when I think I've just been in this industry too long when like that third wall is broken. Where like I saw this BDSM scene and they were shooting it clearly at AVN and they were just torturing this girl's feet and they would be like, you have to stand the whole day at the convention tomorrow. Just like that level of torture. I'm like, wow, that really
That's so
speaks.
funny.
That really
Yeah.
speaks to our community.
Yeah, really.
But that's why I like love about especially lesbian BDSM because as much as it's a scene and all that stuff, like it is one girl getting hit and then it like gets real all of a sudden. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah, and that's something that we do really try to highlight with Queer Crush too. Like even when it's pretty vanilla and tame, we're very the way I usually explain it to people is like we're very, very honest about what we're doing. Like our job as the production team is to stay out of your way and let you do whatever you want, which is part of why we use like the same lighting always. And it's not, we don't do very like dramatic lighting or
Hmm.
anything because we don't want to detract from what's happening. So like it's always the same set. We only use a couple of different comforters on the bed that are in the same color scheme, the same lighting, but it's completely different people all the time doing completely different
I
things.
I feel like you guys are like doing like the 2020s Crash Pad series kind of.
Wow, thank you so much. That is a huge honor. I mean, they are the site that we're the most similar to. It's
Yeah.
just that theirs is broadly queer and ours is sapphic specific. That's like
Yeah.
pretty much the only, well, actually, but although they do differ on this one key thing, which is kind of what I started to explain but didn't finish. So, like with Crash Pad, the setup is it's similar, but it's different in a key way. Their setup is there's a secret Bay Area apartment where queers can do whatever, like they can meet up there and do whatever they want. And so as part of that, they put some of the cameras as like hidden
Yeah,
cameras.
like
Like they're not actually
voyeur.
that hidden when you're on the set, but they do like tape leaves to
Hmm.
them. So it looks like, oh, that's the one that's like in the plant or whatever else. Ours is totally the opposite. We are so honest about how we are in the Queer Crush studio and it's me and Dahlia helping make this video with the performers. Sometimes you see a light stand. Very frequently, performers ask me to do or get something for them. There's one where Hazel Page straight up says to me, she turns and she says, Electra, put a condom on that Hitachi. I'm like, okay. And we leave it and you see me, or you see me walking in with batteries or like
Yeah.
refilling somebody's water or something like that because like we're just not, the whole entire purpose of Queer Crush is this is real, right? Like this is
Hmm.
the way that real queers who are really into each other really like to fuck. And
Yeah.
so I'm not gonna like put in the energy to have some pretentious like, I don't know, editing out all of those things that are just real
I feel
things
that,
that
yeah.
happen.
Because it's like yeah, I think authenticity is like just so fucking important with whatever your art you're making and that you can just show that.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah. I think like that's what people really like see through because like I don't know. I'm not trying to on any other porn company, but like just when it's like these huge elaborate setups, like I get that some people love these scripts and stuff, but that's not me, honestly.
Right. Well, I think they're fun to do. My biggest complaint about them is then usually like it kind of goes away when you get to the sex. And
Hmm.
that's really hard for me as a performer. Like as a performer, I like scenes where it's authentic, real chemistry with someone I actually like, and you basically just set up a tripod and record what was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
And I like, okay, I have a script, I have a character, I have the character's motivation, and I'm going to play that character 100% of the time, including during the sex. But I think what you see from a lot of mainstream porn studios isn't either one of those things. It's, we wrote a scenario just to lead us into the sex.
Mm,
So you're playing this character during this scenario, but then when you're fucking, you're just Electra Rayne doing the sex. And
yeah,
it's
for sure.
tricky because a lot of times those scenes end up like fairly extreme or fairly specific to hit on like niches or tags that the studio wants, which is fine. But then people assume, they're like, oh, Electra's shooting all of this. That must be what Electra's really into. And they don't think about the fact that like she's a performer hired to do a job.
For sure. D- The porn you watch is it like fairly similar to Queer Crush, or is it like
I don't watch porn
very far
anymore.
away?
I stopped watching porn the day I shot my first porn scene because all I see is the production value now. I'm a big erotica reader.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I have to watch Eastern European porn because otherwise I know everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Where
is
I'm like,
weird. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like for so long, like my porn interests were over here. And what I was shooting was like, on the opposite side, and now it's just like all lesbian BDSM, and I'm just like, great.
That's a great choice.
So, what are you like still wanting to do? Like, is there any like dream scenes you have that you haven't been able to shoot yet? Like, because
Yeah.
you're like 9 years in, so you probably like got some most of your bucket list down, I would assume.
Not really. Because I am like I'm 9 year I started 9 years ago, but there were a few years in there where I was not active at all. And then
Hmm.
also, like I said, like as a performer, I don't get booked super often. And I simply do not have the time and energy to be out there like self-producing all of my dream scenes because it's not what
It's fucking
appeals to me,
hard.
right? Yeah, I've just found I love performing. I love directing even more. I do not like doing both at the same time.
It's
I
a
don't
lot.
like
It's a
in
fucking
my
lot.
I got to write my first script lately or recently for the other site that I direct for, and I wrote myself a cameo role in it, like a non-sex
Hmm.
extra role, which was super fun, and it just like cemented for me, yeah, I would not want to do more than this while I'm also directing. It would be way too much. Like, do not put me in the sex scene if I'm also the director. No, thank you. um I don't care if I would get double paid, like I don't want to do it. So like as a performer, like I said, I really, really, really want to be doing more things with scripts. I would love to shoot for Deeper and Dorsell and like just more of those types of companies. Even Adult Time, I think, does a lot of really nice scripts. And I have never actually just shot for them. I've shot for like Jim Powers, whose scenes get
Oh
released
yeah.
through Adult Time sometimes, but not. And even him, I haven't done shot for recently, which is a bummer. Um, Somewhat similarly, actually, for Queer Crush, I'd like to be doing a couple features a year as well. We're just not there yet. Like, we don't have the budget realistically
Hmm.
to be doing it and doing all of that time.
Yeah, I feel like you would do really good with adult time. Like the stuff Susie Q is doing, I feel like would be a very good
I would love
combination.
that.
Yeah, are
I
there
also I think I'd like to direct for some more companies too. I have space right now probably for like one additional recurring studio like that wants me to direct regularly, and then a couple for higher projects. And right now it's really just Queer Crush and then like my one other one.
yeah, I feel like just like producing your own stuff that you perform in is just like so overwhelming. Like the last scene I shot was it was like 9 months of production.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
when you get there, it was like, okay, now I have to perform. And that was
Yeah.
like the easy part. But like I think when you have your own career in your own hands when you're trying to produce shit, it's just so much more stressful because it
Yeah.
becomes this daily thing of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
this
I
actually
know.
gonna happen? Did I waste 9 months on this?
Right. Right. That was even kind of how I felt writing my script.
So was there like when you came back to porn, was there like any like one scene you had where you're like, I'm fully back in this? Because it seemed like you left for a minute. What kind of like sparked you to fully come back?
Um, like I gotta be honest, it was the financial need is what
Hmm,
sparked me to come back.
that's real.
Um, but the I think when I shot my first bi scene, which was for Devil's Films with Jim Powers, that was the
Hmm.
scene where I was really like, oh, Like I want to devote more of my time and energy to this because of how much I enjoy it, not just because I need the money. It was just so cool to be booked relatively early into being back for a buy scene when, again, like that was not, when I started, that was not a thing that existed. And then also it was like a really campy, funny script that was just so fun. And you shoot it just like you shoot any other movie, right? Like, well, we got to get the wide shot and then we're going to do some over the
Hmm.
shoulders. And it's literally a set that has like fake doors and the whole bit. It was just so funny and so much fun. I think that was really the one for me where I'm like, yeah, okay, this is for sure what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing this for quite a while now. Like, are there any places that you just like never really ended up expecting you would go being from Chicago? Like, I feel like for me, I just have such a long list of things that, you grew up in the Midwest, you just assume making art or doing whatever is just going to be so local. Like, my big goal growing up was like, maybe I can screen something in Chicago. That was like the big goal, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know, mine's a little different because like I grew up wanting to be a scientist and I thought I was going to be a scientist and I have degrees in physics and linguistics. I went to school to be a
Wow.
forensic scientist. I used to be a cold case investigator. So like I'm someone who's always actually had like a lot of creative energy, but has never really done much with it. And I've done like a little bit of art therapy and I uncovered that like as a child, there were a couple of instances where like my creativity was severely stunted. Like basically, like I was pretty heavily punished for doing the art project wrong in school and things like that. So it really sort of like, I don't know, I still someday, I actually, right before COVID started, I had done one session of art therapy that was like the second most healing and transformative thing I had ever done. And then the pandemic kicked in and oh well.
And then
Um,
everyone's mental health went to shit, basically.
yeah, right before COVID happened, I had set two goals for myself. They were spend more time outside of the house and see more people besides just my partner. Like my partner could be included, but not like
Oh
just
my
my partner.
God.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So I don't anyway, all that is to say, like, I don't know, my goals are a little bit different because like all of this stuff is just not what I imagine my life looking like at all. But if you told me at 12 or even younger really that my adult life was pretty much all just going to be like porn and my horse, I would, or that like I would sign with a mainstream porn agent and buy a horse within 2 weeks of each other, I would literally not believe you. I'd be like, that's way too cool. You are like, you're making it up. Haha, very funny. Like, that's not what my life looks like. So the fact that it is like, is just pretty crazy.
Was that your big like porn purchase?
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
I so like I grew up, I don't come from a horse family at all. I took like once a week riding lessons for a few years of my life. I didn't show or anything like that.
Hmm.
But I loved them. And then when my family didn't have the money for that anymore, when I had started working and I saved up and just every like 1 to 2 years I'd do like one trail riding weekend. And then in 2020, I hadn't even touched a horse for 2 years because of my health issues.
Hmm.
And I wasn't sure, I had had hip surgery. So I wasn't sure that I was still going to be able to ride. And I had totally given up on having my own horse. Like as a kid,
Hmm.
I was just like, oh, I just want a pony. And like, I'm going to bond with my pony and we'll do everything together. And I got to be, 22 or whatever. And I was like, that's sounds like way too much work, way too much time and money. Like as long as I can be around horses
Hmm.
sometimes, I'm happy. Like maybe someday I'll lease a horse. I don't need like my own horse. So then in August of 2020, my wife and I found out about this campground in Southern Illinois that had separate individual cabins. We hadn't left our house at all. We like
Hmm.
because of my health issues, like we were doing grocery delivery, like that level
Oh
of
yeah, same. My
isolation.
partner's immune compromised too, so we were
Yeah.
completely on that.
Yeah. So, but it was only like it was a 6 hour drive from our house. They had separate cabins that were like spread out all over the property. And
Hmm.
we figured, like, okay, like if we, for any sort of like gas station stops or if we like have to go into the office or anything, we'll wear N95s. And
Yeah.
otherwise, like, we'll just be like in the woods on these horses. We're not going to be near people. So we went just to rent a pair of horses for a few days. And they were like, this is Mo. He's actually for sale right now. And I was like, oh, no, no, I don't. I know how to ride them. I don't know how to like take care of a horse.
Hmm.
I'm not looking for oh my god. He was the most amazing horse in the entire world. And if he hadn't been for sale, it would have been fine. I would have just come and rented him all the time, but I couldn't risk like somebody else buying him and taking
Yeah.
him away where I couldn't access him. And even like everybody at the campground said that like he chose me just as much as I chose him.
Oh.
So at first, like I was really hesitant. I came back a month later, and I had a vet come with me to do a pre-purchase exam to convince me not to buy the horse. He was already 15. He was kind of skinny when we first met. I just figured she was going to tell me like, oh, he has some sort of like suspensory ligament problem, like that he's too complicated. You don't want this horse as your first horse.
Mhm.
Like, don't buy this horse. And she does the whole pre-purchase exam right. I learned so much about horse health as she's like doing all this stuff. Then at the end, she's just like, well, he's going to need a lot of TLC to put the weight back on. Otherwise, I actually think he would be a fantastic first horse. And I'm like, oh,
Oh.
you mean he just needs a Jewish mommy to love him and feed him? Oh my God. So I bought the horse. Yeah, that was my big porn purchase, or like my
Oh.
pandemic pony, who is still like, I moved him to Vegas with me. The reason I have a 2 o'clock hard cutoff is I have a lesson at 3. So
Oh. Yeah, I feel like maybe that needs to be a question you need to add because like everyone has that first porn purchase where they
yeah.
like are just like, okay, I can actually afford something now that I couldn't before.
Yeah. I got a 15-year-old Missouri Foxtrotter.
That's so great. Yeah, so I just have like two more questions left for you.
Sure.
So obviously there's so much turnover in porn. The average career lasts about a year. What do you think has really helped you stay in it, like both mentally, physically?
I think it's sort of twofold. Number one is not taking no for an answer. I someday I'll write an article or maybe a short story about how like pretty much the entirety of my career has been things like not going right or people saying like no or
For
things
sure.
otherwise being in my way and me being like, well, I'm simply not going to accept that because this is what I want to be doing. And then I think the other thing for me is just how quickly and easily I realized how important it is to diversify your income and the things you're doing.
Hmm.
And it works really well for me because like one of the many reasons I love this career is I learned very quickly about myself that I cannot have every day look the same. I don't care if it's a really good day every day. I
Hmm.
can't do it. I would way rather have some good days and some bad days, but they all look different than, okay, well, I go to my job that I like every day and I work
Yeah.
from 9 to 5 and then I go home and I cannot do it. And because I already am someone who likes so much variety and looks for that, it was really easy for me to be like, okay, well, I'm taking bookings as a performer, like paid work when I can, and I'm doing the OnlyFans thing, and I'm still working at the strip club. I like when I moved to Vegas. I had a like weekly income goal for me, and if I hit it, then I didn't have to go to the strip club. But if I didn't hit it, then I needed to dance
Hmm.
until at least I hit that goal. And then like unfortunately, the strip clubs in Vegas are not great. There's only one that I really like, and I'm not allowed to work there anymore because I wouldn't marry the owner, which is
Oh my
ridiculous. I
God.
know. And I was so polite about it and upfront. Like I didn't lead him on and I wasn't rude. I was very polite about how it wasn't going to work out, but now I'm not allowed to work there anymore.
I'm like
Um,
the listeners of this are going to be on your side. If they're on the guy's side, you need to stop listening. You're not the audience we're looking for. We're
Thank
always going to
you.
side with the sex workers.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
But so then like also I was like, okay, well, I'm not getting enough work as a performer, and things with OnlyFans really changed with their whole like, we're banning porn. No, we're not banning porn thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like this isn't gonna be sustainable forever. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna start my own site. Okay, I'm starting my own site. And then I was like, okay, well, the site didn't take off as quickly as I'd hoped, but I really love doing it, but I still need money. What am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to apply at one of the legal Nevada brothels. And so that's where, like, these days, the majority of my income really comes from the brothel and is my
Hmm.
money to live off of now and my money to fund the business. And then, like, Queer Crush is my long term goal. But that was a really long winded way to say, like, I think that level of like resilience and flexibility and like business creativity is part of why I've been able to do this for so long.
I also feel like that like Midwestern work ethic, it's just ingrained in everyone from the Midwest where it's like, well, I have to be doing multiple things at once because you can just
Yeah.
always be doing a little bit more.
Yeah, I do think a lot of that comes from like we were all farmers once upon a time, right? Like if
Yeah.
you go way, way, way back, and I don't know, farmers have all kinds of sayings about rest or lack thereof. And I think maybe a lot of that ethic has just
Yeah.
stuck with us.
Good moral Midwestern values.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what it all goes back to.
Yeah, of course.
So, my last question, it's the only kind of out there question. It's like BuzzFeedy or whatever.
Okay.
So, let's say you wake up tomorrow and you could magically change one thing in porn. What would it be?
Oh, whoa.
You can totally take a second.
Give me a second. I think I have an
Okay.
idea though. I think okay, it would be I would normalize and actually mandate because it's my change. I can do whatever I
Yeah,
want.
you can do whatever
Um
you want.
Open, honest, and direct communication. One of my biggest pet peeves about the industry is just how common it is to simply not respond at all. And I
For
think there's so
sure.
many people that are like, they don't want to cause drama. So rather than saying no, they just won't respond.
Hmm.
That's way more rude. I
Way more
like as
passive
the director,
aggressive.
right. I book people all the time as a director, oftentimes for full rate scenes. And if I reach out to someone and I'm like, hey, do you want to do this project? And they say, no, thank you. I have not lost any good feelings about them. In fact, I feel better about them. I feel like
For
I can
sure.
rely on them to tell me when something is or isn't a good fit. But if I ask and you leave me on red, or you make like a weird excuse that's obviously not true, that is when I lose some respect for you and I'm less likely to
Hmm.
call on you in the future. Similarly, like there's a major mainstream studio that I've shot for several times. And I thought I had a good relationship with them. And then things have been like kind of weird lately when I've been trying to get booked. And a friend of mine, who's a very new performer, was looking for places to work. And I said, reach out to the studio in question. I also reached out to the studio in question and I was like, hey, like I'm trying to schedule some LA trips and things, blah, blah, blah. And they told me that they're all booked up completely for the next few
Oh my
months.
God.
And then just yesterday, I saw their Twitter promo for the scene they shot with my friend that I referred to them on the same day that I reached out to them. I'm not mad that they didn't want to shoot me. I just wish they had said, you're not a good fit for what we're looking for right now. Not a lie about them being too booked up.
I hate this entertainment industry bullshit because like
Yes.
that's like there's so many people who want to like hear the horror stories about porn and they want it to be something like, oh, I got forced to do this sexual act on set. And that
Right.
doesn't really happen that much. I
Right.
feel like what happens is it's all the bullshit of the entertainment industry where
Yes.
people either have beef with you and aren't going to tell you directly,
Yup.
but you'll hear it through someone else. And it's like,
Yup.
well, if that person really has a big issue with me, just come to
Right.
me. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. I had a friend, like right when I was moving to Vegas, there was a performer that I thought was my friend. And we had like talked several times about getting together and she was going to come meet my horse and all of these things. And we had been booked together on pro scenes and all this stuff. And I asked her one day if she had suggestions for studios I should reach out to. And she exploded on me about how she's not my agent. It's extremely inappropriate of me to be coming to her with this. And then started pulling like all this shit that she was mad about that went all the way back to the very first time we had met and been on set together. And she said to me, she's like, stop pretending that I'm your friend to help your career. I thought that we really sincerely
For
were
real.
friends. And I always want to help my friends' careers. I do it all the time. So it sounds like she was pretending to be my friend. And also, so many of these things were things where if she had said to me, like, hey, I really didn't like that reply. It was shit like, I don't like the way you reply to my tweets on Twitter. If she had said, I didn't like that, I would have said, thank you so much for telling me. I'm really sorry. I'm deleting it now and I will reply in different ways moving forward. But because she never said anything at all to me about there being a problem, I had no idea. Like, I can't fix it if I have no idea.
For real. I feel like what's helped me kind of grasp with all this stuff and like all this dumb entertainment industry stuff is I'm like, if I'm explaining it to my family back in Michigan, how it sounds, where they're like, what, why are you involved with these people? Why do you think you could trust any of these people? And it's just like I think you have to have these like pretty strong boundaries between like work and personal life in the
Yeah.
entertainment industry because you have people who think you're friends with and then they're secretly resenting your success and all this other stuff and they're jealous or
Yes.
they have all these other things they're telling other people about you and you just don't truly know.
Right. Right. And I think there's an element there too of like people are so afraid of being associated with drama that they
Mm-hmm.
just don't say anything. But
Yep.
that lack of communication is what actually causes the drama. Like what happened with the friend I just said.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want to start drama by telling me I didn't like this thing you did. So instead, I didn't know, I couldn't fix the problem, and it led to an explosion that led to her being the only woman on my no list. So
Yeah, it's so crazy. I was just in Europe and I've heard these same stories from different European porn stars. And it's like literally a universal thing in this industry, I feel like. And I also have friends in like, I was originally in music before porn. It's all the same stuff. It's the entertainment industry. It's all these like people who have, it's like all this like internalized stuff that people don't want to be direct about. I think that's
right.
just so hard. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
It's
very
rough.
good thing to change.
Thank
That's a very
you.
good magical thing. I think for me, it's just like I just want there to be like a free accessible testing option for this
Yeah, that
industry
would be really nice.
because it's like so bad. I've never had any STIs. No shame if anyone has, but I had 3 false positives this year,
Oh my
and
God.
that's with paying $250 every time to get tested.
Yeah, that's wild.
Or like testing errors where I had to have like shoots get canceled and stuff because of it. And it's just
Yeah.
like really frustrating that there's not a real solution. And then there's like people faking their tests and all this
Right.
stuff. And
Well, I have something fun and exciting that I cannot yet announce on this podcast, but I can tell you as an individual when we're done recording that you might appreciate.
wow, you're not giving the podcast a scoop. I see how
I'm
it is.
sorry. I would
I'm
like to,
kidding.
if it was a little bit further along in the process, I would. It's APAC related, but it
Okay,
also
that's
involves a
helpful.
testing company, and we don't have the testing company's like true yes or no yet. So I don't want to like say it and then have it not work out and it looks like I was
But
lying.
there's hope. There's hope coming
Yes,
forward.
there's some
That's
hope
great.
coming. Yes.
Yeah, where can everyone find you on all the apps?
Oh, thank you for asking. So my name is
Yeah.
Electra Rayne. That's Electra with a C, and Rayne is spelled Rayne. My Twitter and TikTok, which is not super active, are both just at Electra Rayne. My Instagram is at Electra from Chicago. My main website is either electrarayne.net or chicagoslut.com. They will both take you to the same
So
place.
good.
Thank you. Easy to remember and easy to spell. And then, most importantly, my life's work is my website, Queer Crush. It is, to my knowledge, the only lesbian porn site made with a 100% sapphic team. And you can find us at queercrush.com.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I had such a great time talking with you.
Likewise,
And
thank you so much for having me.
yeah, I hope we get to work together again in the future. I had a great time working with you and just really love what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.